Diesel gets much better fuel economy than a gasoline engine, ranging anywhere from 30 to upwards of 50% better fuel economy per gallon, miles per gallon, and that has proven to be quite good.
So biodiesel is basically vegetable oil that has been processed with, it's gone through a process with using methanol and lye to separate the glycerin from the oil. So basically it's vegetable oil that's been thinned. And the advantages are, one is cost. The cost for me to make a gallon of biodiesel, depending on the cost of methanol, it goes up and down, but it's roughly 80, 70 something cents a gallon to make. That includes the lye and the handling and the whole thing. So it's quite a savings, really, a couple dollar savings. It's also a natural cleaning agent for the car. It burns a lot cleaner than regular diesel fuel. The emissions are cut down over half. Your engine lasts longer, basically. The lubrication properties of the vegetable oil are like 50% higher than that of petroleum diesel. So your engine actually gets better lubrication, therefore will last longer. So I've been doing it for 5 years. In my personal car, I haven't had any trouble whatsoever with anything related to fuel. And I get around 15 to 16 miles to the gallon. So it's definitely been good, no problems.
The other vehicle I drive is a Passat wagon. It is a diesel. This one was produced as well in 2005. I bought it actually on eBay. It was a leased car. I bought it as a second-hand vehicle, and it gets very, very good gas mileage as well. This car generally runs in the high 30s, low 40s in terms of miles per gallon, and is a full wagon with a hatchback. So it's a full-size vehicle and a very comfortable vehicle, and the Germans have done a real nice job with the Passat.
With kind of climate change becoming more prevalent in people's minds, it reduces greenhouse gas emissions, namely fossilized carbon, which has been the biggest component to climate change. And so bio-based fuels don't have that same sort of fossilized carbon. Absolutely. And I think also just being able to have a domestic fuel. So even though small portions of the overall biodiesel industry are soy-based and domestic, I think that as the industry matures, we're going to be able to keep that money within the United States, producing domestic fuels that are able to create jobs and really kind of do something good for the environment. So, I think that we're going to see kind of long-term sustained job creation from the biodiesel industry.
So the process in which this all happens is what we're doing is adding lye and methanol and the catalysts that are mixed to the vegetable oil to thin the glycerin out of it, to separate it out of the oil. And with the methanol and lye mixed into it, it breaks down the glycerin molecule that's suspended in the oil, and it then sinks to the bottom because it's heavier than the oil at that point. And once it's done that, we simply just drain it out of the bottom and get rid of it and compost it. The methanol, I buy in a 55-gallon barrel. I use 8 gallons of it to every 40 gallons of oil. That's the ratio which works. And I buy it at an auto supply store, be it Napa or Big A, depending on sometimes one's cheaper than the other. It ranges from $160 to almost $300 a barrel. The price goes back and forth. So yeah, you can buy it at an auto supply place in a barrel and just pick it up. The lye is just a drain cleaner. Lye is a natural made caustic soda is what it's known as. You can buy it in most hardware stores by the case as drain cleaner in a bottle. It's $3 or $4 for 500 grams. It's fairly inexpensive, and that's it. They're hardware store-bought items, and you just mix it in with the oil. So those are the 3 things you need to make biodiesel: the oil you get from a restaurant, it's getting harder and harder to get it because more and more people are doing this, and then the rest of the stuff you can get at a local hardware store. But I pick it up from the restaurants in town in Lincoln in these jugs. And once I get it home, it goes into this barrel. I just dump it through this funnel. This filter catches some of the crud. And then I heat it up for a couple hours to around 110 degrees or so, which speeds up the reaction process. So once it's heated in this tank, this pump here draws the oil into this tank here. Right now it's filled to 40 gallons. That's what I'm going to make right now. And this is just raw vegetable oil that hasn't been filtered or touched or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sample of this. I'll take a sample of this oil now. So what I'm doing now is mixing a sample of the oil with some methanol. And I'm going to put some pH drops in it. And what I'm shooting for is a color, like a greenish blue color, which is like an 8 or 9 pH. This is called titration. You do this for every batch that you make because every oil's a little different. And some takes more lye than others. So this is just going to tell me how much lye to put in the mix. So I just add the pH, turned like an orange color, you can see that. This is the color chart. So I'm at like 5 right now, roughly, 5 or 6, and I want to be up around 8 or 9. So I'm going to add a mixture of water and lye into it, and this will change to a blue color. Depending on how much of this I add is going to tell me what I need for lye. So this is the titration solution. And what I've done is just filled this up to 0. And I'll start adding this in here, and you'll see it start to turn color. Usually takes around 1. See it starting to turn green. And now it's blue. It's 1.2 milliliters or tenths of milliliters to it to get that where I want it. And then I just look on my chart here, which tells me the ratios. So 1.2 is 712 grams of lye that needs to go into the methanol to make this whole thing work. So this is done every time. Every time you make it, you do this. It's always a little different. The lye I just get at the hardware store. It's like a drain cleaner. And when that mixes with the methanol and added to the oil, it forms a bond to the glycerin molecules in the oil, which settles out. It becomes heavy and sinks to the bottom, which you'll see. When we start mixing it, this oil, you can see in this tube the color of the oil. When we start putting this in, it's going to turn white like milk, and then it will eventually settle out of this tank to the bottom. So we can start doing that now. It takes 3 or 4 mixes to get it. And there's a chemical reaction that takes place in there. That tank gets pretty warm. The methanol heats up. It's strange. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know exactly what's happening, but I know that plastic jug is pretty warm. And you don't want to breathe it in. It's not the best stuff. And once I get done with this, there's some valves here, and I'll just set them, and this will get mixed in slowly into this tank and just get cycled around, and that's pretty much it. After that, I'm done. I'll just let it sit.